The dog days of summer are right around the corner, but before we say goodbye to spring, let's take a look at what's happened in the valley. Welcome back to In the Valley. I'm your host, Emma Ando. Let's get right into the news. For many of us, riding bikes is just a hobby. However, one group of people have taken riding to a whole new level.
Most people, when they think of riding dirt bikes, think of something that some individuals do for fun. Meanwhile, for one individual, they plan on making a career out of racing in the sport of motocross.
I'm Ian Kieran. I ride a YZ 250 two-stroke 2018 and a YZ 125 2016. I've ridden a lot of newer stuff. I've ridden Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki, Yamaha, KTMs, and Husqvarnas. And then older stuff, I rode a 1985 YZ 125, a CR500, and a 2004 CR250 frame. That was a fun bike. That's about it. A lot of the older bikes had two shocks in the rear, and they were only about 4 inches long. Now you're down to a mono shock with linkage, and you have about 12 inches in the rear and about 15 or 16 in the front. And now you have air and spring. The older bikes only had springs, and they were like rocks.
Concluding the video interview, Ian spoke on a phone call to talk about his younger years of riding, and also to talk about his plans for his future motocross career.
My racing career started about 6 years old. I started racing woods, and around 7, transferred over to moto, and I've stuck with it ever since. My future plans for motocross are to hopefully turn pro within a few years and place good at the Nationals within the next 2-3 years before I turn pro. I enjoy riding because it's a way to release from everything, and it's also a very time-consuming thing, so it doesn't give me time to participate in other things like team sports, so it keeps me occupied.
Knowing that Ian's career will continue to thrive, you'll be sure to see him racing with the pros and possibly coming out on top.
Making a leisurely activity like bike riding a career takes hard work and dedication. These people have accepted the challenge. History is told through different means, whether it be word of mouth or saved on paper. However, the history of Warwick is preserved in a less traditional way. How is it kept? Well, Jeff Koff has a story.
Since the 17th century, libraries have been a staple of society. The first ones, founded in England, were used to organize collections of documents. Libraries gave everyone, rich and poor alike, an opportunity to obtain information. Since their conception, libraries have opened their doors all around the world, including here in Warwick, New York. On the southern tip of Orange County, the town of Warwick was founded in 1778. This thriving farm town has grown into a grand community. One of the staples of the Warwick community has been the library. However, the library from way back when isn't the one you and I know today. The story of the Warwick Library begins in 1923. In her will, Mrs. Albert Wisner gave $100,000 to her daughter to establish a library in town to honor Mr. Albert Wisner.
Well, the library started out as a private association library, and it was funded with a bequest. So even though the public was allowed in from day one when we opened in 1927, it was entirely private funds that did the library. And then later on, as the community grew and it was realized there was a need for more funding, we became a library that served the entire school district.
After its dedication in 1927, the Albert Wisner Library was ready to serve the public.
I think the library is the center of the community. I think the library has something for everyone in the community. It's a place for little babies even before they're born to come and engage with their literacy, love of reading and books. It's also a place for the community to come together, to socialize, to get out and be together, to explore new ideas and new things.
With the community supporting it, the library was able to grow figuratively and literally. The scope of the library eventually got too large for the physical building to support. In order to keep the library as great as it could be, the community rallied together to construct a new building to house the library they love.
I think folks recognized that it was woefully inadequate to really support the community that was growing, and it just needed a bigger space.
With the doors open, the new Albert Wisner Public Library was ready to serve the community it had been a part of for 80 years.
It's in a wonderful place within the village. I think that it's also close to a school, our senior housing, to one of our largest and most active parks. So it really was in a great place. I think the place that was, that we found for the library could not have been better.
The library had found a new home. However, it wasn't done changing. The library added audiobooks, expanded their DVD collection, and installed computers to create a modern-day experience for a modern-day library. Although the library was going through many changes, one thing remained the same.
Well, the role really is the same that libraries were formed, public libraries were formed, is to give people who don't have access to information and books and lifelong learning an equal footing with people who are of means who can buy those for themselves.
Warwick now has a 21st century library designed to aid the community. But what's in store for the future of the library? At the moment, there's no clear plan. However, one thing is certain. The library will continue to evolve with its community.
I think the library, will continue. Libraries have a long history, not only in our country, but in our civilization, not just in the United States, but all over the world, as being really treasured places that hold the history and hold the mission of providing information and encouraging people, no matter what their resources, to have an equal footing in the world.
The Albert Wisner Library, a home for the community.
I think the library's been here for so long because it serves an essential role in the community. The role that we started out doing is essentially the same role we do now, and there's still a need for access to information and books, and somewhere you can go where people will help you connect with what you want. So that's why we're still here.
From the day it opened, the Albert Wisner Library has served the community. When that community evolved, the library followed. We are truly lucky to have such an amazing place right in our backyard. Don't go away. We've got an episode of Community Crossroads with New York State Senator Jen Metzger. We'll be right back.
Yeah. Are you wearing your seatbelt? No. Kim, you know that people not wearing a seatbelt are 30 times more likely to be ejected from the vehicle.
Airbags are useless unless you're wearing your seatbelt.
Okay, guys, I'll wear my seatbelt from now on.
For more information on seatbelt and car safety, visit www.safercar.gov.
Home fire drills give your family a plan of action. Show everyone 2 ways out of the house, pick a safe meeting spot, and get there in under 2 minutes. Then practice, so everyone knows exactly what to do. Go to ready.gov/firedrill and learn how to prepare your family.
Welcome to this edition of Community Crossroads. I'm Vidar Hegeman. Jen Metzger was elected to the State Senate in 2018 to represent the 42nd District in New York. a largely rural district in the Hudson Valley that includes parts of Orange County. Prior to her election, Senator Metzger served for over a decade in local government and also directed an organization to fight for fair utility prices and clean energy economy that creates good local jobs. She brings to the State Senate a much-needed local perspective on the challenges facing our rural communities, a commitment to improving the lives and opportunities of the residents in her district, and a track record of working with the people of diverse perspectives to get things done. Senator Metzger, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Vidar.
Of course. Since your election, what has been your biggest surprise as working as a member of the New York State Senate?
Well, you know, it is interesting coming from local government into Albany. Of course, the process, the state government is just a completely different animal from local government. It's just, so every week is compressed into a few days of the legislative session. And what is, the pace is absolutely incredible. Like, as I was discussing with you earlier, you know, I'll have, it's just nonstop from early morning until late into the evening in, you know, meeting with people. There are meetings all day, there are hearings, there are legislative sessions, and it's constant. And I'd say this isn't a surprise, but what's so interesting about this job is, you know, at the state level, you are dealing with every single issue affecting the people of New York, whereas in local government, you're pretty much focused on the local issues of your community. So it's been incredibly interesting. It's been, you know, I've enjoyed the work.
Okay.
And I've learned a lot.
Yeah. And as you work as the agricultural chair, how does that compare to the rest of your work in Albany? And is that what you expected, or?
Well, as chair of the Agriculture Committee, it's actually been it's been very rewarding work for me, and an interesting challenge I've had is that in the Democratic majority, I represent the most rural district. Our district has, in the 4 counties that our Senate district includes, Orange, Sullivan, Ulster, and Delaware, parts of those counties, they have many farms. They're rural areas. And many of my colleagues are from downstate. They're from more urban areas. So, you know, I've viewed it as my role, part of my work, to sort of educate my other colleagues about about agriculture, farming issues, and the issues that are important to rural communities. But on the other hand, they understand they want fresh local food in their communities. And that's kind of the challenge that I've set out for me, is how can we get more New Yorkers consuming more of the foods that we produce in New York. Agriculture is our #1 industry in New York. Many people don't realize that, but you know, we want to support and sustain our farms over time, so it's important that we increase consumption.
So obviously as a first-term senator, would you describe it as like the people there as welcoming? Was it kind of a harsh place? What would you say to that?
Well, you know, I was pleasantly surprised, actually. You know, what's interesting about this year is that in many respects it's new for many more people other than me. First of all, the majority parties changed in the Senate, but we also had more new members this year than we have ever had before. So we have much greater diversity. In the state Senate, we have a much greater proportion of the Senate is represented by women. There are many changes, but generally speaking, I really like my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. I like and everyone. It's been very collegial, and I've been very pleased.
Fantastic. Given that the Democrats control all 3 branches of government in Albany, what has been your experience with partisan politics at the state level?
Well, you know, I think the sort of partisan divisiveness that, and we've seen a lot of that at the federal level, That plays out much more in the media. You know, the media kind of, I mean, that makes for much more interesting news, of course. So that's, I think it's often portrayed as much more divisive than it is. Of course, the different parties have different priorities, different values, but what is very interesting is that, you know, there's a lot of bipartisan support for legislation that we pass. And in fact, there's legislation that had previously been kind of blocked in past years in Republican-held committees that passed unanimously or near unanimously this year. The Child Victims Act passed unanimously. Legislation that I carried, it's called the BOSS Bill, which prohibits employers from discriminating against employees on the basis of their reproductive health choices. That passed unanimously. Almost all of the agriculture bills that I introduced passed unanimously. So there is a lot of agreement as well.
So recently, your bill protecting farmers from farmers and lawsuits brought by GMOs was passed. Can you explain the issue and why you felt this was important? Protection?
Sure. There had been a lawsuit brought by Monsanto Canada against a farmer some years ago. The farmer had did not purchase patented Roundup Ready seeds, but you know, natural forces, the wind carries seeds over. So, and this lawsuit really raised a lot of concerns, actually, you know, around the globe about the possibility that farmers could face what are really kind of frivolous, timely, costly lawsuits over something like this, which is beyond their control. So this law basically makes it clear in New York State that you know, if farmers unknowingly are growing GMO crops it could be because of drift or what have you, birds can bring, they're all different ways, that you know, they have the ability to, it's legitimate to make the case in a court that they didn't do this intentionally and that they're not liable. So we're just making it clear in New York, which is important. Farmers, you know, in New York State, most of our farmers are small farmers, small, mid-sized family farms, and you know, they don't have the time or the resources to be dragged into these kinds of battles. They need to be focusing on what they do is just farming. So.
All right. So do you believe GMOs are going to be something that's going to be competing? Are those larger farms or something that might hurt smaller farms in the future?
Well, it's farmer's choice as to whether or not to use those seeds. Actually, you know, this doesn't get at this other issue that, you know, sometimes, you know, you can't again control contamination, and if farmers don't want to use them, you know, it can be hard in a world of GMO seeds, but it's really up to the farmers.
All right. So. The environmental advantages of seeking alternatives to fossil fuels is well documented. Why did you recently co-sponsor the Freedom from Fossil Fuels Act, and what has been the reception thus far from that bill?
So this legislation was important because we face a climate crisis, and we have seen the devastating effects of just a 1% increase in global mean temperature. And we know from the scientific community that we cannot let it go past 1.5%. We have to keep it under 2% our impacts, which means we have to really accelerate the shift to a clean energy economy and reduce and then eliminate our reliance on fossil fuels. We don't have a plan in New York to get there now. So what we're seeing is we're constantly seeing these new power plants coming in and new pipelines coming in, you know, CPV right here in Orange County, also Danskamer is another more recent example. And so we have to say, you know, no more. And so what the legislation does is it prohibits new development, but it also directs the New York State Energy Planning Board to develop a plan to get us to a fossil fuel-free energy system by 2030, earliest 2040 at the latest. The reception, I think, has been positive. I think a lot of people, I mean, there's a lot of concern about this issue now. We're in the process of working on, there was already proposed legislation called the Climate and Community Protection Act, which is kind of comprehensive climate legislation. I'm in a working group that's working on this and trying to get that passed this session. I am perfectly happy if, rather than provisions of the Freedom from Fossil Fuel Act are folded into this legislation. So it doesn't necessarily have to be passed on its own, as long as we're getting to the point of getting New York on the road to a clean energy system, and that's going to be great for New York because it will, right now we import it all. Let's generate it here. Let's create thousands of good-paying jobs. So.
Graduating college students, they're facing a lot of challenges paying their student loans, and especially as they first enter the workforce. While the state has created some loan forgiveness programs and tuition-free schools or whatnot to help certain professions, what could be done to do more?
So I'm actually looking into what we can do. A lot of, it's federal loans in many cases, and like what can we do there's the loan question, and I'm also really focused on what we can do so that students don't have to take out so many loans to begin with. This year, I am co-sponsoring two pieces of legislation that I think are really important. One of them was introduced by Senator Skoufis, and it expands the Tuition Assistance Program, or TAP, which provides direct state tuition aid it's mainly low income, and this legislation would lift that a little, so low to moderate income, middle income. So it would lift the income threshold to $95,000 a year for a household. A student that lives in that household could get that assistance, and it also increases the minimum scholarship, the minimum amount of assistance. And then the second bill, I'm actually introducing it in the Senate, and Assemblyman Jacobson is carrying it in the Assembly, expands the Excelsior program, which is it's a state program that for primarily like the middle class family, for middle class families, it's free tuition. But right now, to participate in that program, students have to carry a full load, 15 credits a semester, which can be really hard, especially for kids that have to work. So our legislation would extend the Excelsior program to part-time students. So more students would be able to go to college tuition-free in New York State. And again, this is like to New York, to the SUNY system, but we have a great SUNY system, and we have an obligation in New York to make sure that our young people have access to that system, affordable access, and can get a good education.
And I believe there was a bill passed in the Assembly, or somebody had introduced a bill that said that they wanted to forgive student loans or New York State loans. Is that something that you'd look into?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that it's a crushing burden. I mean, I was a full financial aid student myself as a kid, and it was. The debt burden back then was much less than what it is now kids face, and it was hard. Coming out of college, I worked at a nonprofit, you don't make a lot of money, and it was really hard to do it all, to pay off your loans, to pay for rent and utilities and everything you need. So yeah, we shouldn't be essentially shackling our young people, when they're trying to, make their way in the world. So.
All right, thank you. After stating that the legalization of marijuana was a priority during his State of the State address, Andrew Cuomo said that basically it was going to get delayed by the state budgeting process. Why? What happened exactly? And where is New York State going to go from here?
Well, from what I have been heard, negotiations were proceeding on that as part of the budget. And then, one day, the governor announced to the press, actually, that it was, not going to continue on that in the budget. I can't explain why the governor chose to just, stop negotiations on that in the budget. It may be partly because New Jersey was not pursuing legalization. It had been, and now it's not. But now he seems to want it again, so back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't, it's uncertain whether it's going to pass this legislative session. From my part as chair of the Agriculture Committee, related to that bill is regulation of hemp, which is a cannabis plant as well. And that was all part of the sort of comprehensive legislation that was proposed by the governor in the budget. And we need standards, and we need licensing provisions in New York State to allow that market to develop, that certainty. So I'm right now working on, I have a bill that would, at least if that the marijuana legislation does not pass, we have standalone legislation, and this governs CBD oil, which has health benefits. It has 0.3% or less of THC, so it doesn't have the effects that marijuana has, but it has potentially a lot of medicinal effects. And it's a really important crop for our farmers. In fact, in Warwick, we're growing hemp for CBD in Warwick and have a plan for a processing facility at the former state prison. It's a huge opportunity for our farms. So no matter what, we at least need to get the hemp regulations through.
Okay. Senator Metzger, thanks for giving us some of your time and providing insight into your work in Albany.
Thanks for having me, Peter, and pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us for this special production of WVTV. Remember to catch all of our shows on YouTube and like and share what you find there. For Community Crossroads, I'm Vidar Hageman.
The first time I met Morris, the door flew open and I got this larger-than-life personality talking at the top of his lungs. Oh man, I totally forgot. Hold on, let me get this for you. So I thought, all right, we're definitely gonna be friends.
Oh, Dapper Leon.
Oh no.
He's the highlight of my week. He's always gregarious at the door. Dana, like it's a surprise.
I've known Mikhail and Giro about 6 months. You don't find many young people that want to be fooling around with us old folks.
I come to the door, drop the food in the fridge, and the coffee is on.
The things that can get you down, he's always like, well, that's how it goes. He gave me some marriage advice right when I got engaged.
I shouldn't have said that. She came in and she said, nobody else knows this but you. We're gonna have a baby. And I thought, oh my gosh.
Despite his vision not being so good, he sees who I am.
He helps put me back in perspective. And then I just feel better.
I said, you guys have no idea how I really truly feel about you.
Doing Meals on Wheels for me is the joy that I look for at the end of my week. I don't feel like I'm volunteering when I'm with Leon.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org.
America!
America!
America! Let's do lunch!
Welcome back to In the Valley. As a community, we love going to the movies. Whether it's a midnight release for the newest blockbuster or a matinee with the family, we all love a trip to the theater. However, here in Warwick, we watch movies a little differently. Here's Dan Walker with the story.
While the town of Warwick has plenty of attractions to entertain tourists and residents alike, the one that stands out above all others has always been the Warwick Drive-In. The drive-in provides a vintage feel to your movie-watching experience due to the classic idea of watching movies from the comfort of your own car with the radio as your audio source. The Warwick Drive-In is one of the last theaters of its kind in the United States, being only one of 300 left in the country and one of 14 left in New York.
Show starts in 8 minutes. Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack.
The drive-in was established in 1950 when drive-in theaters were at their peak with over 4,000 theaters in the country, as they were a relatively common way to watch movies. While other drive-in theaters around the country began to shut down due to decreased popularity, the Warwick Drive-In has continued to improve, adding in 2 additional screens since opening, as well as the more recent switch from film to digital in 2014. In addition to this, the movies at the drive-in also now work with the Listen Anywhere app, which allows you to listen in to your movie from your phone. While the drive-in has always been a great tourist attraction for anyone visiting, the Warwick residents also enjoyed the drive-in for a fun night out with friends and family.
It's kind of like a communal experience, you know, like a bunch of people going to the movies in their cars. You know, I like the movies in general. I work at the movies. I go to the movies a lot. But there's something about the drive-in, you know, seeing a movie outside, you know, in the summer. It's kind of like nostalgic in a way, you know, since like you think of the 50s, you think of the drive-ins, you know. So it's that kind of like feeling of nostalgia and whatever, you know.
I like the drive-in theater because it's really close to home and it's really easy for my friends and I to go see a movie. And the double feature is really nice because it's only 1 ticket, but you get to stay really late.
So if you're ever looking for a different experience when watching your movie over the summer, you can always visit the Warwick Drive-In for a unique and classic way to watch any new movies you want to see.
The drive-in is open and ready for another season of showing today's movies at yesterday's theater. Local businesses are always relying on promoting themselves to get people in their stores. So let's check out what our town of Warwick recently did as part of their yearly tradition.
What if you wanted to get to know your businesses better? Every year, the Community Showcase on Main Street has done wonders for local businesses. This time, it was no different, as many people gathered this year to view booths from restaurants, stores, and other small shops. For its 12th year, the event was sponsored by ShopRite, a main staple grocery store in the area.
Oh, it's really fun. It's a really nice showcase. Everybody came out to see it.
Even with these businesses put into the forefront, there was also a lot behind the scenes. Many aided in organizing the event, including B. Arner, who also helps manage the Warwick Valley Dispatch.
The showcase is great because it gives people an opportunity to come together for this type of festival, and it's just awesome. People that don't have storefront businesses, and they don't even have to be Warwick based, they can set up on Main Street for a day. That's our little slogan for it.
The way that these businesses work together to promote themselves each year is a positive experience for everyone involved. It ended up getting a lot of good feedback in the community. Even the head of commerce was impressed by the turnout.
Warwick is a very strong, small village community. The whole idea of this showcase was to be able to allow businesses that are not located on Main Street to be on Main Street for a day.
So regardless of what purpose they serve in town, it's the people who run the local business that matter most. For WVTV, this is Tristan O'Regan, signing out.
Now that was a showcase if I ever saw one. If you want to participate in more community events, head to warwickinfo.net. It's always good to help people who need it most, especially in Warwick Valley. Tradition is a large part of the Warwick community, and the Little League program is no exception. And every year, they have a great parade. We take you now to Cody Sheridan with the story.
Once the sun starts shining and the birds start singing, you can count on baseball season to be starting, and here in Warwick, it's all about the kids. To signify the start of a new season of America's pastime, a Little League parade is held annually in Warwick. A tradition that's been going on for over 50 years, it's an important time for Warwick residents. The whole league marched through town all the way to Memorial Park, where they had performances of the national anthem and God Bless America. They then had the first pitches, being thrown by Town Supervisor Sweeten and Mayor Newhart. There was also a surprise first pitch by Jaden Obregon, who recently received a new heart, an emotional moment for many. After all the ceremonies were wrapped up, all players got tickets for free hot dogs. We got a chance to speak with Richard DiCostanzo, the head of Little League Baseball, about this tradition.
People are ecstatic, they're happy, just walking on the parade route, people smiling, laughing, waving, and then there's other emotions. It brings you back to when you were a kid and you played, and right now we had the first pitch with Jaden, where it hit home. People were crying, it was emotional. It just shows that a sport could bring a community together.
Afterwards, we were able to talk to Joanna Tower, an enthusiastic parent and coach.
People come out and support Little League because it's all about the kids. I think what we forget to remind ourselves is that this league is all about the kids. It's seeing the smiling faces, it's seeing the camaraderie, it's the companionship. We're teaching them at such a small age to come together and support each other. And as a community, we get together and we volunteer, and that's the most important part. That's the most rewarding part, is when you see the kids smile and laugh and give you hugs and call you by the wrong name. It's so fun, and we love doing what we do.
So what else is there to say but play ball?
Over 50 years and still going strong, a true testament to Warwick camaraderie. And on behalf of WVTV, I wish them all a fantastic baseball season and many, many home runs. That'll do it for this episode of In the Valley. For more episodes of In the Valley and other WVTV programming, subscribe to our YouTube and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. This will be my final time hosting In the Valley, so I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone for giving me the opportunity to be your host. And on behalf of the show's producer, he'd like to thank everyone for watching In the Valley and making this show possible. As always, I'm your host, Emma Ando. We'll see you next time.
Because of you, I felt hopeless.
Because you said rude things about my work, I started to question my own voice.
I know it was a joke, but it still hurt me.
Because of your negative comments online, I've almost quit doing the one thing that makes me happiest in life.
Because you shared something about me that was private, I felt embarrassed.
Because you said hi to me on the first day of school, I felt included and I knew that I was going to be okay.
Because of you sharing your story with me, I feel comfortable sharing my own.
Because you were there when I was coming out, you helped me regain my confidence.
I'm still here today because of you.
91% of plastic isn't recycled. It takes 500 years for the average size plastic bottle to fully decompose. 9 billion tons of litter is dumped into the world's ocean each year. Change starts with you. Pick up after yourself.